In his video, Yuval also said about prediction and statement. Yuval said that after the pandemic, the world will be different and it was completely based on our decision. He also said that he hopes that after the pandemic, people will remember who they really trust. Yuval also said that the scientists have already warned us about the climate change and we have to start thinking about the impact start from now. Yuval said that he is more afraid of the inner dimension humanity that is coming out when people will react to this crisis with not only solidarity but with grief. It means that in the future, the nature of human being will change due to the people that is tired after the crisis. Yuval said that the response of United States of the pandemic is worse than almost any other country. If he has to choose between UAS and Greece for the leaderships in the world, he will choose Greece. It means that if the US now keep failing to overcome this pandemic, the leadership will be displaced by other countries that are more responsible than US.
The theory that is in accordance with the arguments stated by Yuval in the video regarding his view of the world during the COVID-19 is the theory of liberalism, where liberalism is a perspective that upholds the freedom of every human being and prioritizes cooperation between countries. Yuval's argument, which shows the theory of liberalism, is we can get through this crisis by nationalistic isolation or international solidarity cooperation, in which every country does various ways to break the chain of the spread of COVID-19. Each country makes lockdown regulation, isolates every tourist who comes to a country, and is competing to conduct research to find a vaccine that can stop this chain of spread. In addition, another argument, namely, we have everything we need to overcome this epidemic, shows another theory of liberalism. Nowadays, scientific understanding is growing. We can find out what causes disease, how to prevent it from spreading, and so on. Previously, many diseases had no known cause and had killed millions of people. Some people thought this had something to do with the astrological position of the sun or it was a punishment from God. But nowadays, it only takes a short time to identify a disease.
In this time, I'm gonna explain you about our opinions about Yuval's arguments. First argument is Yuval said that international cooperation is an effective and efficient way to minimize the impact of the COVID-19 crisis. The liberal-based international system requires every country to cooperate with the essential needs in this pandemic like this. The impact not only affect in a small country. US as a high statistic has also felt a large impact. So yeah, we agree that a comprehensive cooperation between countries and organizations is needed so that this pandemic like this can be done. The second argument is about several countries' approaches to dealing with pandemics. For a democratic country, they make policies based on variables from field data, such as estimates decline in economics and other worse things. In contrast to authoritarian country, it's very difficult to cooperate with other parties, such as North Korea. Usually, they will cooperate if their interests can be fulfilled. So yeah, we completely agree that each country will take a different approach by looking at the state of its country and the system of government adopted. Each country is making efforts to overcome this pandemic by minimizing the risks. But also, there are also who don't care about the risks and only prioritize the economics. The third argument is about the correlation between climate change and the impact of COVID-19. Jeff Master, as a meteorologist, said that there will be a very bad future scenario if there is no bright spot in this pandemic. The weather is getting hotter, and the lockdown makes people always at home, and because the spread of the virus is easier in cold temperatures, it makes COVID-19 is difficult to overcome. Scientists say, although it doesn't have a direct correlation, but the combination could be affect our stability even worse. The last argument that we completely agree is that the effectiveness of this pandemic response. Trust is a basic thing must be needed in the crucial times like this. The disappointment of the community because government hasn't shown a good result has made the existence of science and knowledge become one of the most important things right now. A country with the very strong religion such as Saudi Arabia, now they are starting to trust the warning and appeals from the scientists. The positive response from community regarding the policy of closing houses of worship indicates that the essence of science is beginning to be trusted by global community. At the end, after this crisis is over, alternative perception will be something international actors and the public global will pay more attention to.
So in here, I just wanted to talk about the 5 arguments and a useful prediction of, especially for each country like Indonesia and Australia. In here, I just wanted to discuss about the point A about the Indonesia. Indonesia has a different approach to respond to the pandemic, and the approach of the government has saved our country now and more years to come. The government has undermined the coronavirus and late handling the pandemic. We have lost thousands of souls and a high rate positive of coronavirus. That the price we pay, and the act they took now shape how citizen viewpoint towards the leader now and many years to come. Mistrust of politician is exactly reflect of Indonesia condition. The lack of transparency from the government and different information provided the government and the scientists made the people confused and undirected. It has caused a disobedient citizen and create uncontrollable situation. Yuval mentioned that the crisis will not change by the human nature, and that's true. We can see through this pandemic, people discover a lot in themselves. They help each other through individual or organizations such as Kita Bisa. They fight together to create a better situation and more. The absence of a global leader made Indonesia and other countries fight for themselves in a time like this. So in here, I just wanted to talk the point B, Yuval's argument through Australia situation. Every country as well as Australia have adopted different approach than Indonesia to respond the pandemic. Australia has success to overcome the pandemic. They are close to eliminate community transmission of the coronavirus. Several practical measures contribute to Australia's success. They choose to quickly and tightly seal its borders. Health officially rapidly built up the manpower to track down and isolate outbreaks. And unlike the Indonesia approach, all the Australian states either shut their domestic border or severely limited movement, for instead, in some cases, intra-state travelers. Their response toward the outbreak has shown their capability and seriously to protect the people, and I think it be something they should be proud. Yuval mentioned that the crisis will not change the human nature, and that's true. Leaders from across the ideological spectrum and persuade Australia, towards the pandemic, seriously early on prepared them to give up the civil liberties. Politicians working together to avert a health crisis, and the government tend to regard as the solution to society's problem rather than the cause.
What Yuval said about the future of globalization is picturing the future of this pandemic that is like coming to a party after the party is over and the only thing left to do is wash the dishes. So today they are handling trillions of dollars that change the job market. So whatever comes in 2021, or we can say in the future, it will be very difficult to rewind and try another something else. There will be a significant change in the job market. If some universities move online, it will create a completely social atmosphere for the students, and some of their things will change dramatically, but in the fundamental or human nature, it will not change. To survive from this pandemic or something like this in the future, you must find a leader who really have a sympathetic feel for this case, such as Greece. They are so well handling in facing this crisis, and if he should compare between Greece and UAS, it will be great if the leader of the Greece can lead a whole world to face this pandemic. So the future of globalization calls itself it will have a surveillance system, such as in North Korea, they have every citizen has to wear a biometric bracelet in their arms. So when their leader is have a speech, you have to watch it because it will be monitored in our body. So you can smile or clap your hands, and if you're angry and can accept, they will know. In short, you have no control over what actually is happening in your body, and this is no longer science fiction. This is already in the present day technology, and the coronavirus epidemic can be watershed even when the government going already to our skin becomes accessible.
The US will remain the world superpower. Now the US has basically undertaken their role as the global superpower title. However, China had been the dominant power in East Asia for centuries before Western imperialism in the 19th century. Now, after nearly 30 years of spectacular economic growth, China is once again poised to retake its place as the regional hegemon and possibly become the world's new superpower. According to the theory of offensive realism, it is natural for a great power like China to seek a regional hegemony, which the United States currently holds in the Western Hemisphere. In an anarchical international system with no overriding authority to turn to, survival is the primary aim, as states can never be sure of actors' intentions. Thus, in a self-help world, China is made more secure by the more economical and military power. Getting to the position of being a regional hegemon with no peer competitors in its own backyard would give it the ability to alter the balance of power in other regions of the world. Nevertheless, neorealism, alternately called defensive realism, differs from offensive realism in this respect. Neorealist Kenneth Waltz argues that excessive strength may prompt other states to increase their arms and pool their efforts. According to this view, states may form a balancing coalition to prevent the rise of the dominant power. This would make it rational for China not to antagonize its neighbors by building up such a predominance of power that they, together with the United States, ally against it. However, offensive realists argue that regional hegemony is the only sure way of maintaining survival. Therefore, state actors should be on a constant lookout for opportune moments to maximize their power. Arguably, it is the loss of regional hegemony by China in the mid-19th century and the subsequent century of humiliation which perfectly illustrate this point. Since the mid-1990s, China has undertaken as well-funded program of military modernization. It attempts to counter potential American force projection inside the disputed waters of the First Island chain. Denying U.S. naval force freedom of movement in the East and South China Sea is vital to keep the U.S. Navy away from the East Asian waters constitute a necessary and almost sufficient condition for a Chinese bid for regional hegemony. The Chinese military is building up the capability to deter American operation within Asia. Their deterrence strategy could use a military tactic called area denial. It includes the extensive use of anti-air and anti-ship missiles. It could cause a high attrition rate for U.S. aircraft in any conflict inside the First Island chain, which would push the U.S. away from the Chinese mainland, hampering operational flexibility. For the time being, any bid for regional hegemony will be curtailed by several Chinese disadvantages. In terms of military technology, China is still many years behind the Americans and still relies on Russia for most of its high-end military equipment, including engines for its fighter aircraft. The nuclear submarine that it's now constructing are roughly in line with early Cold War technology and not comparable to anything in the U.S. and current inventory. On the other hand, the U.S. does have its own disadvantage. Although economic warfare would probably work better against present-day globally integrated China that it did in the Cold War against the autarkic Soviet Union. The strength of China's economic influence should not be underestimated. There are now 80 countries in the world that have China as their biggest trading partner.